breaking all the rules. How I turned this into a masterpiece without any of the traditional rules of gardening. You can do this too. I had a viewer write in and said they couldn't tell if I was a typical gardener. What is a typical gardener? You mean if I put seeds in the ground, put some plants in the ground and expect it to grow? Yeah, I guess I'm a typical gardener. But at the end of February, beautiful day like today, I'll be wanting to get the tiller out and till nice straight rows. Get ready to plant my seeds, space them out just exactly right. Hope it didn't rain too hard, turn that into a soupy mess so it gets hard too fast before everything starts germinating. No, I'm not a typical gardener. Used to be. Used to plow, used to hoe, used to space everything out. Then I found this deep mulch method. Yeah, I plant seeds way too heavy. Some folks are concerned about how to thin them out. Let's take carrots for example. Now we like to eat the tops, so I plant it heavy. If the slugs don't thin them out and I get a really thick germination, we just start picking them little ones. We space it out a little bit. We take those tops and we like to eat them. And our radishes, since we eat the leaves, we take them at every stage, and that thins them out. There's usually a few left at the end, just like the carrots, to go to seed. And with the radishes, the seed pod, you get more food out of a seed pod on a radish than you do out of the radish in the leaves. It's amazing, and those things work really well with any kind of cooking. Just toss a couple of those young seed pods in there, spices it up just a little bit. And if being a typical gardener means following some sort of rules, I've tossed that rule book out. And I do have a bunch of people concerned that I'm going to get a bunch of weeds where I've got all this hay spread out. The whole point behind this is 4 inches thick or thicker, keeps that sun from germinating any of those weed seeds. And as this breaks down, anything that's kind of up in the top that does germinate, those roots are just in the hay. I just walk by and kick them out with my toe if I find them. And you will get a few, but once you do that, you kick them out, they become part of the mulch. No big deal. And like I said, we let a lot of things go to seed, so we get volunteers all over the place wherever the mulch gets thin. And that's also a blessing. But typical, the end of February, I had to stop by the hardware store. And you know what? They got their first plants in last week. We had that cold weather. So they had a table, 99 cents, and they forgot to water, so I got some artichokes. I'm telling you, I'm not typical. We're gonna go ahead and plant. These were all pretty droopy just a minute ago, but I gave them all a drink of water, and I knew they'd stand right back up. So let's go ahead and get these in the ground. Right here on the south end of the garden, this is the newest part that we put in last year. We've got our raspberries over there. So this is, and our blueberries. This is our perennial beds. I've got asparagus right through here that did their first year. I'm not sure how far they're gonna spread to grow. Let's go ahead and put our artichokes right here. That way they'll be companions with our asparagus. And then we can backfill in around here with some strawberries, which are also perennials. And if I was a typical gardener, I'd have the rototiller out here and we'd make nice little rows. But all we have to do is pull that mulch back. We're gonna dig down, we're gonna plant. And just like with my rule of thumb, these were on sale for 99 cents, so they're under $1. They thought they were getting away with something, but just look how nice that plant is. So you pull that mulch back, and even though this is the second year, we have orange clay, and you can still see that it's kind of brown. It's not as black and beautiful as some of the others, but this will be just fine. And no, I'm not typical. I'm not putting any fertilizer in here. Just digging the hole big enough to put the plant. Snug that down in there. We're gonna backfill with a little mulch. It's just that simple. But yeah, these got a nice drink. They're good, and they're gonna be good and happy here just in a minute. Any of the droopy leaves, I'm gonna make sure I get the mulch underneath those so they're supported. And as they perk back up, there you go. And even though this is brand new, you can see all that fungus right there in the wood chips. That's what we want to promote, the life in the soil. And that life in the soil is what's going to feed these plants. So no, I'm not typical. I don't use any fertilizer, and I don't have to water very much either. The mulch keeps that ground good and moist. Now that's a nice plant. They thought these were goners. That's kind of the good thing about having kids working for a hardware store. They have no idea what they have. And you can get some pretty good deals if you look around. And if you're like me, you can't help from shopping for plants, especially when it's warm outside. And just like that, we've got an artichoke patch in right next to our asparagus. Our perennial garden is coming along just fine. And after thinking about it, I'll probably add some strawberries in here, just as some ground cover, and it'll add a variety. But I think we're going to go ahead and plant potatoes this weekend. The long-term forecast says we do have 2 or 3 more days, maybe 20 degrees at night. I don't think we're going to get any more of that Arctic cold. But from here on out, everything that we're going to plant is either going to be under mulch, like the potatoes, or it's going to be able to handle any kind of cold weather, like the cabbages, the artichokes. And no, I guess I'm not a typical gardener. We've got cabbage and carrots and beets and cilantro and lettuce, more cabbage and collards, all kind of things growing in the garden right now. Got little baby spinaches up front in the cold frame. And it's just the end of February. It's gonna be a glorious year, and you can do this too. Just remember when your first and last frost date is, that's the key. Plant cool weather crops early. Your warm weather crops, you got plenty of time. You want that soil temperature to get up to around 50 to 60 degrees before you go with your corn or your summer squash or your winter squash. They like that temperature pretty warm. Your tomatoes and peppers need that soil to be warm. But if it's warm, they're going to take off real fast. You'll be surprised. I guess I am typical thinking about how plants perform in what kind of weather conditions. Now, that's the other thing about the deep mulch. The reason we can do this all winter long is it moderates the temperature. But we can also do it all summer long because it moderates the temperature. As long as the roots don't get really, really hot or really, really cold, the plant can take a lot of temperature variation. We've got tomatoes fruiting in 113 degree heat index, soil 70 degrees. We've got everything you see here growing just fine. It was down to 0, minus 27 wind chill, but the ground and the life in the ground, they were doing just fine. A little bit of plastic covering. So I'm typically not typical. But we have a lot of fun out here, and the hardest work you're ever going to do in a deep mulch garden is harvest. You ought to give it a try. Although, I would never tell another adult how to garden. If you're happy rototilling, and hoeing and pulling weeds, and you are successful, you're successful. I didn't find I was very successful or happy doing it that way. This has been a game changer for me, and I thought folks might be interested. Until next time, remember, take care of yourself, take care of your family, and God bless you.